We have put a number of checks and balances in place to ensure they continue to live up to our standards. I lead this company without political bias and work to ensure that our products continue to operate that way.
There you've got Google's CEO grilled on Capitol Hill yesterday about user privacy and political bias. But did Congress get the answers they wanted? House Judiciary Committee member Darrell Issa was in the room. He joins us right now live from D.C. Mr. Issa, he says he leads the company with no bias. But is there bias at Google?
Well, there's bias in the outcome, and that's been demonstrated time and time again. The question is it benign and it leads to a bias? And that was one of the questions we asked him to go back and look at is, if you see outcome disparity, can you trace it back to find out whether it's software that could be improved to eliminate that, or whether, in fact, in some cases, it might be a programmer with a little idea of how to give one party or the other an edge?
There's a headline on the Washington Post editorial page right now. It says, Google needs regulation. Republicans are too busy screaming about bias. We heard your side talk about bias yesterday, but does Google need to be regulated?
Well, I think the whole question of your privacy is a question for an evaluation and broad regulation. Remember that every time your phone passes through both cellular signals and Wi-Fi signals, everybody in that network is detecting your MAC address, meaning you're being tracked. Every time you turn on an app, for example, one that tells you that when you say, I want the nearest restaurant, you're giving up at that moment where you are, or it's not going to tell you where the nearest restaurant is. So figuring out what the do's and don'ts are, where transparently you and I know whether we're being tracked or not, and we're getting a service for it, and more importantly, having transparency within the system is important, and we're not getting it right now. Yesterday was a down payment.
Real quick exit question, though, regarding bias and Google results. Does Google have their thumb on the scale?
Google needs to really soul search independently with those outcomes and see where the problem is coming from, because there is a problem. There's been plenty of examples, but I think we have to eliminate the idea that it's willful bias and instead look for how these outcomes come that way. And that's what he was charged to do yesterday, and said he would go back and look at.
Well, let's see if he makes a return appearance. Representative Darrell Issa, sir, thank you very much for joining us live.
Thanks, Steve.